Goldie reached out to me a few months ago, and we got to connect, and we went to visit with her, and I was just very moved by being in her presence and hearing her speak. And when I asked her to come over here, I was shocked and amazed that she said yes. So I'm very, 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 very grateful for her for giving us her time and her energy and schlepping all the way from Kona in the rain, right? Thank you to you guys both for bringing her very much. But I'm really grateful for everyone to hear what she has to say. The Holocaust was one of the greatest tragedies ever to happen to our world. And with that, to me, is what happens when we get separate. And to me, that's what Goldie reminded me of the most in sharing with her, is how we truly are one. And when things change so rapidly, things get scary. And I feel that remembrance is the only way, and history is the only way we prevent it from repeating itself, right? We be the change. So with that said, everyone please give a warm shlohad to Goldie. She is an amazing lady. I'm so grateful to you. I love you so much.
Okay, can you hear me? Does
Yeah.
it work? Okay. First of all, just call me Goldie, okay? And I never considered myself a Holocaust survivor. I had this argument with the rabbi here. And because I thought a Holocaust survivor is a person that survived from concentration camps. They need to be known as Holocaust survivors. Well, anyhow, I had some controversy at home about this, so I looked it up in the internet. And this is what it says. The United States Holocaust Memorial Museum, which defines a Holocaust survivor as any persons, Jewish or non-Jewish, who were displaced, persecuted, or discriminated against due to the racial, religious, ethnic, social, and political policies of the Nazis and their collaborators between 1933 and 1945, including, among others, people who were refugees or were in hiding. So I guess I'm a Holocaust survivor. That's what the museum says.
That's a big thing for her to admit.
I consider myself a very, very, very lucky person to be here, to be alive, where others are not. So I didn't know where to start, so I'm going to start at the beginning, when I was born. I was born in Köln. It's really Cologne, the English way, but in German it's Köln. It's K-O with an umlaut, L-N. That's
Can everybody hear her?
Hear the line. And I was born...
Goldie, hang on 1 second. We're going to switch your mic on.
Okay.
We're having some technical difficulties. Everybody's awake now.
Okay, is that better?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Did you get that I was born in Köln, Germany? And the night I was born was the first Seder. Now, a Seder is the first night of Passover, and it's a feast. And my mother comes from a family of 10 children, 8 girls, and she invited everybody for the Seder. And the way she explained it, she had her best china and her best tablecloth and everything, and we had a maid. Her name was I forgot it. Sorry, it'll come to me. And she was supposed to clean, and she forgot to clean the pipes under the sink, you know. So my mother got under the sink to clean the pipes. She didn't want her family to know that she's not clean. But I forgot to tell you, my mother was 9 months pregnant with me. So she cleaned the pipes, but she couldn't make it up. My father was, he went to synagogue. It was the time to go to synagogue, and the midwife was supposed to be on call. Well, when he came from synagogue and saw my mother lying under the kitchen sink, he ran for the midwife, but by the time he came back, I was here already. And I always say I did it my way. Well, the Seder went off well, and now I have to go on to when I was a child. I come from a family, they're Orthodox, but I changed them. I became not Orthodox. And my father was a custom tailor. A custom tailor is a man who starts making custom suits from scratch. And he had a good business. And everything went well until Hitler came to power, and they took his business away. So he set up a room in our apartment. And from there on, I was about 9. That's a long stretch from birth to 9. Nothing happened in between. So I joined a Zionist Jewish movement, Hashomer Hatzair. If you're familiar, Hashomer Hatzair translates as the Young Guardians.
Yes.
Okay. I looked that up too.
You and the internet are dangerous.
Yeah, I'm in love with Google. So, and we had a house that has not my family. The youth movement had a house where other groups met. We called it the Jew house, the Jewish house. And there was Maccabi Hatzair, Hashomer Hatzair, and other youth movements. And all we wanted to do was go to Israel. And that's when we found out there was a wonderful man. His name was Theodor Herzl. And he was a Zionist, and he made all kinds of speeches so wonderful it would be to have our own country. So, the house I lived in, it was an apartment house. There are very few private homes in the city. They're in the outskirts. So, and we lived, there were 2 families on 1 floor. There were us, and there's a Catholic family here. And the first time we realized there's something wrong, this Catholic family had 2 children, a boy and a girl, and they both wore the Nazi uniform. They were Nazis all the way through, and they were told to report everything what they heard at home to their leaders. And I didn't know that until later, because the father was anti-Hitler, and he felt he was at home. He can say what he wants at home. And the kids brought it back to their leaders. And next day, there was a commotion outside my apartment door, and I looked out, and there were 2 brown shirts, SS, who dragged the man out of his house because his children told on him, told them what their father said. And we never saw this man again, never. He was a neighbor. We weren't friendly, social, but we were just saying hello all the time. And she came to my mother and explained what happened. And we never saw him again. Also, the house uh, housed all these organizations, Jewish organizations, was taken away. It wasn't taken away, it was there, but it was locked up. We can't use it anymore. And we were told we can't meet more than 3 people at a time. So if we wanted to have a meeting, we had to find a place where we could go individually. And we had trouble because we all had bikes, and we decided to go one time. We had mountains around us in Köln, and they're called the Sieben Gebirge, that means the 7 mountains. And one of the mountains was called Drachenfels, and that was the lowest one. And we decided to have a picnic on there, up there. And I think I was maybe around 11. And we rode there just 2 people at a time. And we hiked up, we left our bikes down below, and we hiked up, and we all had rucksacks with our lunch. And once we found everybody was there, nobody was left behind, we took our lunch out and we started eating it. And we had a leader, and her name was Vera, and she was 18, so she was the big leader. Well, we were eating lunch, and then we heard Nazi songs. And a whole group of Nazi boys marched up this mountain, and we couldn't just get up and run, so we ate our lunch in peace, and we just talked among each other. And then they came over and wanted to know who we are, what we are. And Vera, our leader, said, "Speak Hebrew." Nobody knew Hebrew. I mean, what are we going to speak, you know? But we knew prayers. And we knew Jewish songs, Hebrew songs. So we talked like Baruch Atah Hashem. Oh! And they didn't get wise to us. And one said they could have done a lot of damage to us because there were seniors. And one says, "Oh, let them go. They're all gypsies." Thank God we're gypsies, you know. And we very quietly closed our sandwiches. If we ate them or not, I don't remember. But we walked down that mountain. We didn't run until we were close to our bikes, and then we ran like hell because they could have pursued us, and they had the upper hand. And there were boys and we were girls, so we were lucky. I wanted to, let's see what, there was one incident I can tell you. Another incident, it was Mother's Day. And I wanted to buy, we had a market called a flower market for Mother's Day. Nothing but flowers, no fruits, no vegetables, just flowers. And I took my bike to the market to buy my mother flowers for Mother's Day. And I was about 12. And at that store where I was buying, there was a Hasid, an elder Jewish man with a long black beard standing, and he was trying to buy flowers for his wife, or I don't know who. But there were some Nazi boys, and they lit his beard. And I was standing right next to him. And I couldn't help because then they would attack me too. So I don't know to this day what happened to that poor man. But I got on my bike and I ran home and I cried. That's another incident. Now, over here, if you look at me, when I was a child, I had jet black hair, and for some reason I looked Jewish. Well, among the blondes and blue eyes, yes, I looked Jewish. And I was harassed all the time. I had friends in my class who were blue-eyed and had blonde hair, but they were Jewish, and they were never bothered. And they waited for me till I came out in the morning to go to school, and they were harassing me all the time. So my father had to hire a guard. He was called the Black Knight with a K. And he looked just like an SA. You'd think he was a Nazi, but he wasn't. And he waited for me, and he walked me to school every morning. And he waited till I came out. And the rest of the day, I couldn't go anywhere most of the time, unless I snuck out. And those are the things that happened constantly. My father had a boyhood friend. I have to tell you, my father's family moved from Poland when he was 2 years old, and so he considered himself a German. But his friend was not Jewish. We all called him Uncle Willie. He had a little hardware store. So when I went to visit him, in the front door, as you entered the front door, he had a big picture, a long picture of Hitler. And at night when he closed the door on the other side of Hitler was Jesus. So they never caught up with him either. They never went at night to him, you know. And for some reason, when he talked to us about the Jews, he always called us Hebrews. I could never figure out why he would do that. So I want to tell you about my school. I went to a Jewish public school, even during Hitler's time. It was a Jewish public school, so they paid for the school. And everybody was Jewish. There was nobody else. All the teachers, my principal was Emil Kahn, and the interesting thing about our school, in the basement we had 28 little cubicles for showers, because a lot of people didn't have any showers at home. We had, my family did. So every other day, we had to go down in those cubicles and take showers. And I tried to get out of it. I said, I got a shower at home. It didn't work. We had a curtain, and the teacher moved the curtain aside to make sure we were under the water and not next to the water. And the most interesting thing, I thought, almost all the schools in Köln sent their kids over to our showers, to the Jewish public school. They came in droves. One day this school came, one day this school came, one time they came in the afternoon when we weren't using it, and so we were helping them keep them clean. Well, that's another incident. Let's see, I didn't want to forget anything, so I wrote some things down. Oh yes, where we lived was right around the corner was a beautiful park. They called it Horst Wesselplatz. Horst Wessel was a Nazi youth who was gunned down because the park before was called Wartenow-Platz. And Wartenow, Mr. Wartenow, was the mayor, so they called him the Horteplatz, but he was also killed. And they called it Horst-Wessel-Platz. And they had signs all over, Jews and dogs not permitted, can't get through. So, and across the park, on the other side of the park, was our synagogue. And I sang in the choir. And we had a director who, if you're not there, on time, oh boy, you wouldn't want to stay there anymore. He wouldn't let you live. It had to be the punctuality that they teach you from childhood on. Also, they said cleanliness is holiness, but I don't believe that they believed it. But anyhow, I was late for practice. And I decided, instead of going around the park, because I'm not going through the park, I'm taking my bike and take a chance. Either Mr. Steinberg, that was his name, our director. Which was worse, I decided. Going through the park and have a problem, or have my problem with Mr. Steinberg. So I decided to take that path right through the park with my bike. Well, they were on top of me, no time at all. And I don't know if every bike was like this, but my bike had a pump, a hand pump built in. So I took this pump out. I took that pump out from the frame and threatened, "Don't you touch me." Well, I touched one of the Hitler Youth, and I besmirched his uniform by my touch. So there were some people sitting in the park, older people, and they tried to come to my help because he says, "You stay here, I'm calling my leader." And they decided, I dirtied his uniform, you gotta pay. So I was a kid, you know, so I went to my father's house, and they had to, they decided he had to pay a fine or days in jail. But see, like I said, my father was born in Poland, my mother was born in Poland. My father was 2 years old when they moved to Germany. And the children, I had two brothers, we all had Polish passports. I've never been to Poland. But at that time, I don't know, it may have changed now, but you are what your father is. So my father was a Polish resident, you know, so I was. And I used this so many times, "You can't touch me, I'm Polish." Because sometimes I got away with it, but not too many times. But because actually we were considered visitors in Poland because we weren't considered German. So that helped us a little bit. And my mother had, she comes from a family of 10, 8 girls and 2 boys. And she left Poland when she was 18. My mother was a very, very gutsy woman. She left because she couldn't take it anymore. They had pogroms. And they had, my grandfather, my mother's father, was a goldsmith. So he made a pretty good living. I made wedding bands and, you know, and all kinds of earrings but the girls weren't safe. And something I learned later I didn't know because my grandmother, we called her Oma. Oma is German for grandmother. My Oma said, she told me one time, and she has, I don't think she's ever told anybody before. Her husband, that's my grandfather, was, they had, of course they didn't have a garage, they don't have cars in that time, but he kept his horses there and cows there. He dug a hole, like a cemetery hole, but bigger, and he put his 8 girls in there. So when the Cossacks came with the horses looking for girls to rape, he had covered it with straw, and my Oma told me that half the time they couldn't even breathe. They were laying there like sardines, head to toe, until the danger was over, then they came out. And that she never told me until later on. I tell you when she told me, but I'm going ahead of it. My Oma came to the United States, not with us, but she came with my uncle. And one time I decided later on that I'm going to take her to a movie. And that was just before she died. And the movie was Fiddler on the Roof. I thought she might enjoy that. She couldn't understand English too well, but if you watch the movie, you can get the gist of what's going on. And comes a time, if you all have seen the movie, and I think most people have seen it, there was a wedding, and the Cossacks came and ruined the wedding and everything. And my grandmother's sitting next to me in the movie house, and it was dark. And all of a sudden, she saw them coming on horses with their uniforms, and she says, "Oi, weiß mir, they kommen schon like." And I started crying. And they had to call the usher to get her out because she was making a spectacle of herself. She saw them coming, and she thought, they're back. And so I never took her to another movie. Yeah, I took her to a movie. There was a movie house that showed Yiddish movies, and they had Johnny Belinda in Yiddish, which was really good. She enjoyed that very much. So things like that are standing out. Oh yeah, my father had a friend. He had a jewelry store in the city, and he was an Orthodox Jew. And his wife, Friday night he closed early because he had to go to synagogue. And his wife called my father and said, "David, I don't know. My husband hasn't come home yet." So, of course, my father went right over to the store, and there he was. The store, he was beaten up. He had a German shepherd who was killed. He kept the German shepherd in the store with him for safety reasons. And they took him away, and she never saw him again. And a week later, she got a package in the mail with his. That was him in the package. And all this time, my father kept saying, "Oh, they're not going to bother us. They're not going to bother us. This is just little incidents that occur. We will survive." Oh yeah, another thing. I saw in my apartment where we lived, 2 or 3 times a week we saw people coming through, spending 2 nights in our house. And I would say to my father, "Papa, are those relatives?" He says, no, they're just friends, they need a night to stay, and they'll be gone by in the morning. And somebody came and get them. And later on in life, after my Oma died, I found out that my father actually was in the underground. There were people that needed help, and we were a safe house. And we had always had a spare bedroom, and they spent a night or two, and they were gone. And I never realized. It's like, my father is so good. He takes homeless people in, you know. But it wasn't like that. They had funds, but they had to sneak out. You know, they had to find a way to get out. And slowly my mother took all 7 sisters out of Poland, because between Germany and Poland, Poland was worse than Germany. Mm. And then she took my Oma too, and I never had any, I never had to look for anything for cousins. I had cousins galore. I mean, everybody had 2, 3 children, you know, and that was great. That's another thing. And I told you about my neighbors. Oh yeah, and all the parks, all the movie houses, the opera, everything had signs on, dogs and Jews not allowed. So we had to make our own entertainment. I had cousins who were musicians, and we had our own, but it wasn't normal. It was not normal that we couldn't do that. Now I was 14, and my friend, my girlfriend said, Goldie, you know, all this time you haven't learned how to swim. Come, we'll go to the beach, and I'll teach you how to swim. She was blonde and blue-eyed, and I was not. Well, we went to the beach, and all around were signs. She ignored them. She says, don't worry, we don't see anybody around here. We're safe. And so I had my bathing suit on under my clothing, and I went in the water with her, and before you know it, there were 3 husky Nazi boys. They came from behind me. I never saw them where they were. And they held my head underwater. And I would have died if it wasn't for my friend. She lashed out at them. Well, they took her away. They took me away. But not, they just took me home because I was crying so hard. And to this day, I don't know how to swim because I get panicky in the water. And the odd thing is, I married a man who was a swim instructor. He was in the Navy as a swim instructor. He taught swimming, life-saving, and abandoning ship. And he said, before I die,